was speaking to the HOD, which is the head of the Department of Economic and Small Business Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs, who is Dr. Mbulelo Nokwequ. Did I pronounce your surname right, Doctor?
Perfect.
Definitely. Okay. Let's get to the business of the day. On the 18th of January 2022, which was on Tuesday, Doctor, if I remember, the MEC took to the streets with the MEC Roadshow, which was called Let's Talk Business. You know, the Provincial Local Economic Development and Transformation Bill was discussed there, and the progress on the development of the economic sector master plans for the province. Are you able to share with us the highlights and the key points of the bill?
No, thank you very much, Dr. KHIBA. Look, as you would know, maybe let me just provide a sort of a brief background. That what we refer to as the township economy has been experiencing quite a lot of instability and upheavals over the past few years because, amongst other things, lack of regulation or lack of enforcement of regulations that are there. And by so saying, we're not saying we, as some claim, that we need to introduce more red tape, but rather to be able to manage the activities that are happening in our economy. So if you look at issues around non-compliance with the Business Act of 1991, non-compliance with municipality bylaws, and non-compliance with Consumer Protection Act and other acts, and particularly health standards, it has become quite necessary to sort of bring some sense of order in that place. Now, we don't want to overburden the municipality with that type of responsibility, although we know it's their responsibility. So that's why we said, let's come up with an overarching mechanism that would be able to assist in regulating and coordinating all those. Now, the bill, the Free State Integrated Local Economic Development and Transformation Bill is not only, I see people think that it's only focused on the regulatory space. It touches on a number of things. I'll highlight a few of them. One, we are saying let's deal with how we enhance the support for SMMEs and have a coordinated way of doing that. Two, we're saying the organized business community must be able to speak with one voice when they interact with government. You would have noticed that we have a situation where we have a mushrooming of business, what we call business associations and or chambers. And we're saying people come and demand diametrically opposed things from government, yet they claim to represent the same constituency. So we're saying, how do we regulate and make sure that we coordinate that space? And then, of course, there's the one that we has created a lot of interest in terms of how do we regulate certain economic activities and designate them or reserve them for citizens and people with permanent residence in South Africa, because you would have noticed that there's a lot of contestation in that place. For example, if you talk about micro to informal sector, you have your car washes, your tuck shops, ECDs, and so forth. And I don't have to tell you how that sector of our economy has become problematic, because in the main, people have come to us and said, but there's a lack of regulation in that place. There's a lack of coordinated approach, at least from government side, in terms of how do we manage that sector of the economy. And this course, with the inputs, that's why we call it a bill. It's not yet an act. It will be further enhanced as we call for inputs and so forth. 6, to respond to those type of observations. And even organized business themselves have said, without introducing more regulatory burdens, but there must be control. It can't just be free for all, and there's no coordination. Everyone does as he wishes, wherever he wants to. So so we need to bring some sense of order in that place. The last point that I want to make is this, that as well, when we talk about enterprise support and development, we are saying let's have a coordinated approach in which we can talk to big business and say, how do we make sure that small businesses, especially township-based ones, are able to access procurement opportunities that are available from those type of sectors. I can give you just one example in conclusion. If you look at the retail sector, which is one of the biggest sectors, we have malls in the townships and so forth. Yet you have township enterprises that produce certain commodities. How do we measure the two to the extent that those commodities can find expression in the shelves of your major retailers? So we are trying to say you can't talk about perpetually trying to support SMEs and when what they produce, those who produce certain commodities, their products do not find expression in space anyway. So that's why we're saying let's deal with that. So this bill is multifaceted and deals with quite a number of areas, which is why we have been on the roadshow to say people must make contributions and inputs by this Friday.
You're speaking about that point of saying you are giving the public a chance to come and give their views as well. On the 28th of January 2022, you called on the public, especially on this matter, to come and give comments on the Provincial Integrated Local Economic Development Transformation Bill. Why is it important for the public to share their views about this bill?
Well, it's quite important because I'm sure you are aware there have been, from some sectors, there have been some concerns as to certain aspects of the bill. And this exercise is intended at exactly that. We can't say government has all the solutions. We can develop solutions in partnership, and which is why we're saying, yes, the bill that we have drafted, in the true spirit of participatory democracy, we are saying people should make inputs so that we enhance what we have already drafted. But most importantly, when we get to a place where should this be adopted and become an act, then there's a sense of ownership, and then it becomes easier for us to implement, enforce, and monitor. May I hasten also to add that this is still preliminary inputs that we are going to integrate into the bill, after evaluating. But there's still going to be a parliamentary process, which is going to be run by the Free State Legislature. As you know, before a bill, as part of processing that bill, there's going to be what we call a public participation exercise, in addition to these preliminary inputs. So there's still going to be another chance through a process that's going to be run by Free State Legislature, where there's going to be a public participation, and then the bill will go back to the House for further processing. So in the spirit of participatory democracy, we allow people, especially the affected parties, to then participate and make these inputs to enhance that which we want to do.
This bill that we are talking about right now, you and I, it is now published in the Provincial Gazette of the Free State Province in terms of the rules and orders of the Free State Legislature. In terms of people that are interested in finding it, where can they find the copies of this bill? Do they have to pay a certain amount to have the copies of this bill?
I think the simplest way is to go to our website. I think we have deposited it there. They can download it there free of charge.
Okay. From the 22nd of this month, February, the MEC is expected to start and conduct information sessions for the community of Free State to unpack this bill furthermore. Are you able to share with us about the municipalities that you are going to visit until or before the end of this month?
We have already started this past Monday. We were in Nokwequ. We visited 2 municipalities in the Free State area. Maybe let me put it this way. The approach that we took is to try to distribute our interaction with the communities in as wide a manner as possible. So today we are in Mbulelo and Lady Plant. Yesterday we were and Smithfield today. Yesterday we were in Tomsbeck and Belfontein, and a day before that we were in Nokwequ and in Kopis and in Hillbrook. And I think tomorrow we'll round off I'll just have to check my schedule, but we'll round off today. We're rounding off in Smithfield and in Fitzbeck. So we have tried to distribute. We have been to the clubbing. So what we are trying to do is to interact with the communities and explain the bill, what it is about, so that when the comment time closes on Friday, at least they will have had a chance to get an explanation and get more information. Insofar as, for example, some people have the same questions that we're asking, so that then they can make meaningful inputs. But as I said, this is not the last chance. There's still going to be another process, which will now be formally be run by the Free State legislature. All we wanted to do was to create interest so that people can start making these preliminary inputs into that bill directly to the Free State legislature, so that they can then be processed and, where possible, integrated into the bill, which will then be taken for public participation.
In your engagements with the community of Free State, Sasolburg is one of the big towns that could be considered as one of the economic hubs. In your schedule, I haven't seen whereby you have mentioned that you'll be at Metsimaholo at some point. How are you going to accommodate the community of Metsimaholo?
No, because of the size of our team being small, we in fact, after talking to you now, when the team comes back, we are going to evaluate and see which other towns can we do. But it was just because of the time, of the limitations of time. But as I said, there's still going to be this ongoing process to engage. But let me add, we have also used community radios. I think yesterday we had a simulcast to all community radio stations, including the one in Metsimaholo, as part of that process, because sometimes it becomes physically impossible to be at all places at all times. So we have also tried to use a platform such as this to be able to reach out to the communities that we have not been able to get to.
Doctor, in the goodness that you are trying to do for the community of Free State, obviously there would be criticism, there will be different views around this. We have seen that on the 7th of this month, February, criticism came from a opposition party, Democratic Alliance, in the province, and according to their views, they are saying that this bill that we are talking about, it is restricting a wide range of business activities, as it states there, exclusively and solely reserved for ownership and operation by a citizen or a person who has a permanent resident status in the Republic. Under this section of economic activities are reserved for citizens and persons with permanent residence. Such criticism came to say that you, as the ANC or as the department, are going to kill the economy and the jobs of the province by proposing such. What is your response to that?
Mungaka, I don't want to be drawn into the political discussion. Suffice to say, I'm aware that the MEC of the department, Makalomale, has provided a comprehensive response to the issues that has been raised by the political party that you mentioned. But let me, as I said, the response was comprehensive in dealing with those type of issues. But let me hasten to say, I just want to restrict myself to what is in the bill and what the intention of the bill is. That, you see, if we say those economic activities are restricted to residents and or citizens, you remember when we started the interview, I said one of the observations is that there's no control. Our Consumer Protection Office unit does inspections, compliance inspections in conjunction with municipalities, law enforcement and immigration. And there has been quite a number of instances where undocumented immigrants were running businesses, or those whose status could not be determined, or whose asylum permits have long expired. Now that creates and it is not, as it been suggested, a xenophobic move and so forth. You can't go to any country, walk in, start running a business, you are not documented anywhere. That will create a state of chaos. So that's why I was saying, to what extent can we regulate that space without introducing unnecessary regulatory burdens? There's a process that we are undertaking with municipalities, which we call ease of doing business. That when I go to a place and I want to apply for rezoning, I want to apply for business permit, those processes must be seamless. I must be able to get in, get out, and be able to start with my business. But there must be a sense in which there's control. So introducing controls does not mean that you are introducing regulatory burdens. I mean, we can take this debate to the extreme and say producing a passport when you are at a border post is a burden, but you know it's something that has been there with us, something that has to be done so that movements are monitored and controlled. So similarly, what has been happening in the South African economy is that there has been that lack of enforcement and so forth. But you see, we must also appreciate that this bill borrows a lot from the existing Business Act 71 of 1991, in that there are a lot of aspects that are in this bill that are already provided for in that act. So it is, I mean, it's a 1991 act, so a lot of things are already there. In fact, that act is now being in the process of being amended, and I'm sure some of the aspects that we are raising in our own provincial bill will find expression. And so most of the aspects there are really nothing new. But lastly, because of what is happening in many economies around the world, especially in the developing world, the developing economies, include ensuring that there's inclusivity and ensuring that you empower your own citizens. It's something which is quite important, because if your own citizens are saying, but we feel excluded in the economy, and you have no mechanisms of responding, then it becomes a problem. So I will just limit myself to that response and say we are saying let there be control, but on the other side we are also dealing with the issues of ease of doing business. For example, one of the issues that we are raising in the bill is that municipalities must develop investment incentives, right? So basically municipalities must make it easy for people to come in their areas and invest. So they must make provision for some incentives, for example, whether rebates on rates and taxes, cheaper electricity rates in their industrial areas, and so forth and so on. We talk about ease of doing business. Like I said, how long does it take for a site to be rezoned to a business site? As we know, there's been complaints in some instances, not all municipalities, I must confess, where people say it takes forever for you to get your response back. So we're talking about those things. So this bill is very comprehensive, and I'm not sure why would people only focus, only on one aspect. But when the same bill tries to create an environment where you will enhance, the ease of doing business when you go to when you come in and you want to invest. Now, imagine. Let me give you a very simple example. Imagine if you are a big investor, you start a factory, you employ 400-500 people, you do your business, and then around your factory, there's just chaos. People are doing this, there's no control. It's also to your disadvantage as an investor. So, so this bill seeks to protect both big and small investors, big and small operators equally, so that there's that sense of order in that space. So I don't see it as a problem at all. But yes, the inputs are still coming, and I'm sure there will be those comments that can then be used to enhance what we're trying to do.
And just looking back at your bill there as well, you have indicated that those businesses that are holders of appropriate license, which is issued by a municipality or a designated licensing authority, may carry on or undertake business activities. DA as well came and argued to say the same municipalities that you are speaking about are unable to run their own financial affairs. So this, according to their view, will definitely delay and prevent economic investment and job creation in the province. Because you'll understand that some of our municipalities, they've faced challenges, financial challenges. Corruption is one of them. So what is going to happen in this case, as you are giving the municipality a responsibility to issue out licenses?
As I said, the MEC Mahale has responded to this issue, but you see, I think there's a problem in terms of that approach. We can't throw our hands up in the air and say the municipalities must be left to collapse. And I want to be practical in the example. For municipalities to be able to operate efficiently, and for the purpose of my argument, I will not involve myself in the argument about corruption and this and that. For the municipalities to be able to operate, they need to have, amongst others, a stable revenue base, and I agree with you, proper skills and so forth. Part of that revenue base is that your residents must be able to pay their rates and taxes, they must be able to pay electricity and so forth. But also, your taxing regime must be able to say, how many businesses do I have here? How many sites are zoned as businesses? Because a residential site and a non-residential site, a business site, are taxed differently, as an example. Now imagine a situation where the municipality has no control and has no records on how many businesses are there in there. Is that not in its own nature? Will that not be regarded as a failure by the municipality to run its own affairs? So I think I find it very contradictory, because what we are doing with this bill, we are saying the municipalities must be able to be empowered to be in charge of their affairs. The issue of the skills that are there in the municipalities is a separate issue, but quite equally important. But what we are saying is that you can't just say, point a general finger and say, everyone is corrupt, so therefore let's not do anything. I am giving you a practical example to say, if you don't know how many businesses are in a municipality, how are you going to collect a revenue? As a municipality, you must be able to say, but you are operating from the residential side. This site should have been zoned as a business site, so that appropriately you can then, you can be taxed according to how that site is zoned. As we speak, we have that type lack of control in other, not all municipalities, in other municipalities, where we are enhance even what is already there in terms of bylaws for the municipalities to use your phrase, to be in charge of their affairs. So that challenge of building very efficient local government structure is something that as government we are seized with, and the idea that municipalities should be able to deliver services to their residents is something that cannot be argued against. But this is part of the ingredients to that to reach that outcome. So it's not something that works against that particular intention, but it's part of what mechanisms can be put in place to ultimately get there.
Doctor, before I let you go, on a very lighter note, is this the first time the MEC of this particular department proposed a bill? And if it's the first time, as the department, what is your reaction? How do you feel about this? Because it could be seen as a legacy. I believe that this bill will not only work in this particular administration, but it will work in years to come, which will be a legacy.
No, I must admit this is a groundbreaking move by the current MEC, Mbulelo. But to answer your question directly, this is not the only bill that we have introduced. There's a bill, the Free State Liquor, Gambling and Tourism Act bill that we introduced in the House. I think it was 2018, 2019. It has gone back. There are a few things that we are fixing there. It will also be published very soon. So that one is intended to deal with issues around liquor licensing, gambling licensing, and also to regulate the tourism space and create opportunity for more revenue in terms of base levies and so forth. So we do have an act. Maybe at a different time we can talk about that bill, because currently on the liquor side there are people who are on the 1989 I think act, and others are on the other one which was published in 2010 if I'm not mistaken. So we're trying to consolidate that. I'm sure you would have noticed that there are outlets that are allowed to close at 2, but others don't have closing times because their license regimes are different. So we're trying to close that space and make sure that the taxation, the licensing and everything is well. So those two bills, this bill and that bill, I think are groundbreaking for the Free State and will have a huge positive impact on the economic development of the province.
Last question before I let you go, due to time. You have been on the ground since the roadshow. How has been the response, especially when it comes to young people, for this bill?
Just one word. The young people are saying they couldn't wait. They can't wait for this bill to actually be approved into an act. As I say, if you have people who feel disenfranchised by lack of government intervention, it creates that type of problem. So we've had quite a huge outpouring of support, both on our social media platforms and through radio call-ins. But I have it on good authority from my other officials who have been on the ground that even the inputs that are being sent to the legislature have increased substantially since we started with the outreach program. Remember, we have the hybrid, not hybrid, a dual approach in terms of this. We are saying it may not be possible to go to each and every town hall, but we are saying platforms such as this have been invaluable in ensuring that we reach out to as many as possible. Just on Tuesday, the MEC was on 2 national radio stations which have a huge footprint in the province, And there was a huge feedback to that type of interaction. So radio is quite a powerful tool insofar as I'm concerned in reaching out to a lot of people, because remember, when you call a meeting around this time, many people are at work or they are engaged in other activities, economic activities, so they may not physically be able to be there, but they are listening wherever they are and they are able to interact and make their comments. So it has been, the response has been quite huge.
Dr. Mbulelo Nokwequ, who is the head of the department there for the Department of Economic, Small Business Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs in the Free State Province. Doctor, thank you so much for sharing your time with us.
All right,
thank you so much.
Thank you.